Hello again. This is the recording of week four, and just a second. Yes, we will do another recording if my energy stays. We will do another recording. Anyways, what do you see now? You see feminine Arabic is here, right? Okay, just I had put this slide for a class discussion, so just forget it right now. Let's talk about this is our cover slides. Let's talk about we talked about major perspectives in sociology, so let's continue from modern sociological perspectives. I told you that we have three major perspectives: functionalism, conflict perspective, and symbolic interactions perspective. And in this lecture, I will be explaining this to you. First, let's talk about intersectionalities. Um, so in a more recent contribution that sparks the discussions is the notion of intersectionalities or the interlocking matrix of domination. So in all societies, privilege or lack of privilege is determined by multiple social factors like gender, age, sexual orientation, nationality, religion, things like that. So these interlocking factors demonstrating that it is not just wealth that influences how we navigate our daily lives in any society. Intersectionality is that you add little race conflict theory in with gender conflict theory and a little bit of Marx theories about class conflicts, and you get intersectionality. So the analysis of how race, class, gender, nationality, religion interact to create systems of disadvantage that are independent. So you need to see society is going to be wrapped up in the identities that you have. So like I would have a different experience in the world as a result of my own interlocking identities. So let's continue with symbolic interactions perspective. Symbolic interactionism is primarily a sociological theory. There is a great affinity between this social theory and philosophy. We begin with many places that we can begin discussion, but primarily we begin to understand with this notion of self, the idea of who I am, who am I, self. How do we sense for interaction between the mind and the body? So it is sort of the attempt to understand this polemic discourse between the self and the social. So workers interacting on the job, encounters in public places like bus stops and parks, like behavior in small groups, all these aspects of microsociology. Remember, functionalism and conflict theory were macrosociology, and these are micro sociology. These catch the attention of interactionists, etkileşimciler, sosyal, sembolik etkileşimciler. Theorists who take the interactionist perspective generalize about everyday forms of social interaction in order to explain the society as a whole. Today, given concern over like traffic congestion and commuting costs, interactionists have begun to study a form of commuter behavior called slugging, like this. Um, so interactionism Do you know what slugging means? Please learn it. Interactionism, also referred to as symbolic interactionism, is a social framework. Basically, it's a sociological framework, I'm sorry, in which human beings are viewed as living in a world of meaningful objects. Those objects may include, I don't know, material things, actions, other people, relationships, and even symbols, as an especially important part of human communication. Symbols have a shared social meaning that is understood by all members of a society. Symbolic interactionism springs from a concern with language and meaning. For instance, in the United States, a salute symbolizes respect, while a clenched fist signifies defiance. Symbolic interactions offer a lens through which to analyze the social construction of reality. With a theoretical perspective focused on symbols like what? Language, gestures, artifacts that people use to interact. This approach is interested in how people interpret those symbols in daily interactions. For example, we might feel fright at seeing a person holding a gun, unless, of course, it turns out to be a police officer. Interactionists also recognize that language and body language reflects our values. While Americans might recognize a thumbs up as meaning great, in German it would mean one, and in Japan it would mean five. So, our construction of reality is influenced by our symbolic interactions. Like this. Manipulation of symbols can be seen in dress codes. Schools, for instance, do not allow students to wear clothes displaying messages that appear to endorse violence or alcohol consumption. Businesses stipulate the attire employees are allowed to wear on the job in order to impress their customers or customers. So, like in 2005, the National Basketball Association (NBA) adopted a new dress code for the athletes who play professional basketball. This involved not the uniforms they wear on court, but the clothes they wear off court on league business. The code requires business casual attire when players are representing the league. Indoor sunglasses, chains, and sleeveless shirts were specifically banned. So, let's continue. Interactionism developed first in the United States with George Herbert Mead. He is widely regarded as the founder of the interactionist perspective. Many sociologists have moved away from what may have been an excessive preoccupation with macro or large level of social behavior and have redirected their attention towards behavior that occurs on the micro, small scale level. So, this theory of I and me means that basic human skills need to be taught and learned similar to advanced social skills. Let's give an example. A 4-year-old child in grocery store turns to another customer and says loudly that you are really fat. Can he say that? Can she say that? The child's parents get really embarrassed and they apologize. The 4-year-old is unaffected. Imagine that 4-year-old becomes 40. Do you think this would be the same? No, you can't. As a 20-year-old, 30-year-old person, you can't say that a person that you are really fat. You can't say that. So, George Herbert Mead claimed that how people behave is conditioned by the social context in which behavior occurs. Socialization, toplumsallaşma. Mead also argues that self-awareness, or the ability to see ourselves as others see us, and reacts accordingly, is learned. This is about sociology, this is about philosophy, and this is about psychology. Mead continues to argue that the self-awareness of who we are has two related aspects, I and me. In Turkish, there is no I and me. In Turkish, we only have ben. So this is kind of hard to explain in Turkish. I and me are the two sides of the same coin. I is subjective, where me is objective. I is the spontaneous part of the self. Less concerned with what people think. It's like a child, 4-year-old child. It is our opinion of ourselves as a whole. We respond the behavior of others as an I, in other words, the unsocialized self. It is unpredictable, creative, and acts in extreme situations of rage and excitement. The second is the me aspect. This is more socially aware part of self and conscious about symbols. There is no me at birth. It develops through interaction and socialization. You learn how to be me. It is the awareness of how others expect us to behave in given situations. The me aspect is also called the social self because it develops through socialization and it stands for predictability and conformity. For example, if you accidentally put your hand in fire, then I expresses how you react to the pain, but the me expresses how you choose to express the pain. I hope this is clear. In conclusion, Mead showed us that in relation to other members of the society, this socialized self, or me, is constructed highly by the influence of the shared values of the society where we undergo the socialization process, toplumsallaşma süreci. The I and me constantly interact in social situations. Mead claims that language allows us to become self-conscious beings, aware of our own individuality and able to see ourselves from the outside as others see us. The key element in this process is the symbol. As I mentioned, a symbol is something that stands for something else. For example, words that we use to refer to certain objects are in fact symbols which represent what we mean. So language is a system of sounds. Hmm. You can check this one. And you can check this one. Oh, how cute. Language, as I said, is a system of sounds and sometimes figures to which we collectively attach meanings. So everybody speaking your common language agrees that certain sounds mean certain things, like this is a cat, right? Obviously. And the written figures of English speakers agree that agree stands for cat, the word cat, C-A-T. As you can see, the word cat and the animal cat are not similar at all. The word cat is nothing like the actual animal it refers to. We are not using hieroglyphs that the Egyptians do. But we all agree that the word cat stands for this animal, this cute, beautiful, lovely animal, and that when someone makes the sound that we say when we see the letter C-A-T, cat, we all imagine something similar to what we have here. So, Mead argues that humans rely on shared symbols and understandings in their actions with one another, because human beings live in a rich symbolic universe. Virtually all interactions between individuals involve an exchange of symbols. Symbolic interactionism directs our attention to the detail of interpersonal interaction and how these details are used to make sense of what others say and what others do. Sociologists influenced by symbolic interactionism often focus on face-to-face interaction in the context of everyday life. They stress the role of such interaction in creating society and its institutions. Max Weber here is an important influence on this theoretical approach because although he acknowledged the existence of social structures such as classes, parties, status groups, he had that these structures were created through social actions of individuals. So, while symbolic interactions perspective can provide many insights into the nature of our actions in the course of day-to-day life, it has been criticized for ignoring the larger issues of power and serve to constrain individual social action. Another very important symbolic interactionist is Erving Goffman and his dramaturgical approach. And here I have an article which you can find easily on the web. Please check it, read it, to understand what I mean here better. It's a very fun to read article. It's an academic one, of course. It's a scientific one, but it is fun. So check it. So Goffman popularized a particular type of interactionist methods known as the dramaturgical approach. Here, people are seen as theatrical performers. The dramaturgist compares everyday life to the setting of the theater and the stage. Just as actors project certain images, all of us seek to present particular features of our personalities while we hide other features. Thus, in our class, we may feel the need to project a serious image. At our party, we want to look relaxed and friendly, as I talked about this beautiful article. Anyways, Arlie Hochschild wrote a very important book called The Managed Heart, Commercialization of Human Feelings. She watched flight attendants being trained to manage their feelings as well as learning other skills. Hochschild recalled the comments of one instructor. He was a pilot at the training sessions. He was saying that, now, girls, I want you to go out there and really smile. Your smile is your biggest asset. I want you to go out there and use it. Smile, really late on. So they are actually selling their emotions in the service sector. So if you are working in a restaurant, working in a, I don't know, barber shop or any other place, or working in academia, like you're selling your service to the people, you need to sell your emotions, sell your smile. And Hochschild calls this training in an emotional labor, a labor that requires that one manages the feelings in order to create a publicly observable and acceptable facial and body display. According to Shields, the companies you work for lay claim not only to your physical movements but also to our emotions. Um, so Hochschild's book has an impact on symbolic interactionism, and many other scholars have built on her ideas. Although Hochschild conducted her research within one of the world's most developed service economies, the United States, her findings are applicable to many countries around the world, demanding that more and more people engage in emotional labor at the workplace. Um, Another very important perspective, modern perspective in sociology, is postmodernism. So, here, postmodernism. Tac, tac. So it is believed that modern society first emerged in the 18th century, but it came like four major changes. First of all, the nation state. We start having modern boundaries and more territory, and we identified ourselves within a certain nation state. We have our own national anthems, we have our own national flag, and we are very much governed by the national government within the state. So they have ideas about education, welfare, and these differ depending on each nation state you are actually in. And with this also came the idea of capitalism. So globalization enabled us to have more ownership of production, and also there was the introduction of labor and wages that came with that. It is what industrialization basically brought along this idea of modern society, which was a radical change. The nation state plays a big part in this because basically what they do is putting laws and things in place which help capitalism operate and which help for the exploitation of the proletariat. Remember Marx and his conflict theory. Um, these all have major impact both socially and economically. And finally, some say more importantly that is this idea of individualism. So we are moving away from this collective consensus value society, which functionalists favor and talk of so much. And towards individual goals, these changes are customs that changed our personalities, our own identity. We start to find our own identity. Class structure still remained quite important in identifying who we are. So, although you were not necessarily going to be staying as a working class farmer, if you were a working class farmer, then your identity would be kind of fixed to that. On the other hand, globalization is the ability to operate on a multinational scale in various ways, and this came around because of technological changes. For instance, this is one factor. It is our ability to communicate with people on the other side of the world. Like I can communicate with a person who is living in Korea, or I can travel to Korea, or a Korean person can travel to Istanbul. And this has enabled the people to work together collaboratively without ever actually meeting each other. But this brings risks. it actually creates environmental risks and global climate change and rising sea levels and problems like that. Melting North Pole. Everything is like coming with globalization. And because of this ability to communicate with each other, now we are also able to work economically with each other rather than within our own and set nation states. We have the ability to sell goods, we have the ability to produce goods in different countries and sell them in another country. And these all have major impacts on the fact that we can work globally and we can buy things 24 hours a day now, online, offline. Um, it has been, there has been political changes as well, like great political changes are led to globalization. All of these things have major impacts on cultural identity and globalization. Our identity in culture has changed because we now live in a world mostly based on the Western values. Most of the companies that operate and we see on television and internet are generally Western. They spread the ideas and cultures and norms and values of Western society. Like there is McDonald's in everywhere. Why do these changes happen and what explanations can we give? First thing we are going to look at it is the idea of postmodernists who believe that we are in an era of postmodernity and this is a very unstable and media saturated, media doygunu society. Postmodernism argues that there is no absolute truth, that the basic structures on which we have built our whole society are just social constructs. Some of these social constructs could include power relations, gender relations, social classes. Everything that we take for granted and we assume are real or fixed. Postmodernism says, well, no, these actually aren't necessarily true or inherently true. Postmodernism is a big no to what we believe. They are the things that we have created as a society or as cultures, and now we just believe to be the truth. So one of the constructs that postmodernism wants to break down is the whole idea of good versus evil. It also wants to break down the idea of binary male and female ideas. For most postmodernists, there is really no set of agreed upon definition on it. So, it is difficult to work at postmodernism. It is simply a way of analyzing or critiquing different frameworks. So, postmodernism argued that nothing was purely objective. All of these things, all of these assumptions and different structures that people were coming up with were predicated upon society. The cultures that came out of that, there was no true objective truth because all the people contribute in this process have their own ideas. I don't know if you are confused, but don't worry, most people are. Jean Baudrillard, he is a French sociologist, a philosopher, and he's a cultural theorist. He has this important idea of hyperreality. For him, the postmodern age is a world where people respond to media images rather than to real persons or places. Simulacra or simulation, which furthered this idea that our current society has replaced all reality and meaning with symbols and signs, and that human experience is a simulation of reality. Baudrillard argues that we make We take maps of reality television and film, more real than our actual lives. So here he is talking about the death of the real, where one lives in a hyper-real realm, hyper-real space by connecting more and more deeply with the things like television sitcoms, music videos, virtual reality games, or Disneylands, things that come to simulate reality. So he argues that in a postmodern culture dominated by TV, films, the internet, and media, all that exists are simulations of reality which aren't any more or less real than the reality they simulate. So Baudrillard points to the process of simulation in which representations of things come to replace the things being represented, and that the representations become more important than the real thing. For instance, did you watch this movie, The Truman Show? In this movie, hyperreality was used as a technique. I love this movie very much, and I certainly uh, want you to watch as well, The Truman Show. Um, the film is about. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about the synopsis. I want to just tell you that Truman's World is a concrete example of hyperreality, as it is a simulation of a world that is seemingly real but does not actually exist. It is this apparent authenticity that continuously tricks Truman and blurs the line between the reality and the fiction. Gerçek ve kurgu arasındaki çizgi blurlaşıyor. It even inspired a mental disorder called the Truman Delusion, that a person thinks that his or her life is a part of a staged television show. So, like when Princess Diana, the Princess of Wales, died in 1997, there was an enormous outpouring of grief all over the world, not just in the United Kingdom, all over the world. But were people mourning for a real person? Princess Diana existed for more people only through the mass media, and her death was presented like an event in a soap opera rather than an event in real life. Separating out reality from representation has become impossible when all that exists is hyperreality, the mixing of the two. I'm sorry, I should check something. Hmm. Um, for Baudrillard is actually coming from technology in the media, and this can be quite dangerous because they are just about selling and trying to give us information, not even products of necessary, but all sell us knowledge and how we should think and how we should actually act. This could be from sales of products, but also through soap operas. I don't know if you are watching like Kızılcık Şerbeti and soap operas like that. The danger of this is for Baudrillard, it creates hyperreality. This is where we start believing that fictitious things actually are reality, and we can't distinguish between the images that we are seeing and what is actually real. Zygmunt Bauman accepts that the modern project originating in the European Enlightenment of rationality shaping society no longer makes sense, at least not in the way thought possible by Comte, Marx, or other classical theorists. However, since the turn of the century, Bauman increasingly moved away from the term postmodern, which he says has become corrupted by too much diverse usage and now describes our age as liquid modernity. Uh, these concepts are very complex concepts. I don't want to make you confused, but it will be good for you to know about Zygmunt Bauman and Jürgen Habermas. So let's summarize postmodernism. After modernity, postmodernity comes. It is thought to be a new society rich in choice, freedom, and diversity. Here, secularization occurs. There is a growing disbelief in religion. It is a media saturated society. We are all under a bombardment of messages, digital messages. It's a new reality. It's a digital age. It's a world where we make our own choices. It's a world of danger, like global warming, world wars, and pollutions. It's also a world of changing gender behaviors, like the clear cut between female and male has been disappeared in postmodernist world. It's a whole new world where styles, cultures, and nations melt within each other and they make hybrids. This is a very nice video to understand about the mixing of cultures. I would be very happy if you can watch this on YouTube. It's also fun. Social constructionism, I'm sorry. It's another very important perspective in modern sociologist approaches. It refers to the way we create meaning through social interaction with others. Social constructionism is a theory that people develop knowledge of the world in a social context. And that's much of what we perceive as reality depends on shared assumptions. From a social constructionist perspective, many things that we take for granted and we believe are objective reality are actually socially constructed. And thus, this can change as the society changes. So, the theory of social constructionism states that meaning and knowledge are socially created. The theory of social constructionism asserts that all meaning is socially created. Social constructions might be so ingrained that they feel natural, but they are not. Instead, they are an invention of a given society and thus do not accurately reflect reality. So, please think about the relation between postmodernism and social constructionism. And here I will put a bullet mark at this course. For next week, I will continue from modern perspectives. I will continue to talk about social constructionism. And then I will talk about Pierre Bourdieu and his habitus, which is a very important concept in sociology and communication and in social sciences in general. Thank you.